life. Therefore, please, I submit this question to your lotus feet, and please instruct me. So, what do you think Lord Chaitanya said? Any guesses? Maybe you know already. What did Lord Chaitanya reply immediately?
Chant Hare Krishna.
Very good. Sri Chaitanya replied, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, without cessation, continue chanting the holy name of Lord Krishna. Whenever possible, serve him and his devotees, the Vaishnavas. So what was that? What was that? What were the instructions?
Chant Hare Krishna.
Chant Hare Krishna.
Without
That was
stopping, chant.
Yeah, and what else?
Devotional
Serve the
service.
Lord and the devotees.
Devotional service.
Yes, and whenever possible, serve the Lord and his devotees. So then Satyaraj Khan then said, okay, well, he asked another question. And he guesses what the next question might be. The reason I'm harping on this a little bit is because this is a very famous exchange between the Lord and his devotees, especially from Kulina Gram. So it's very instructive.
Yeah, he said, who is the devotee? Or
Yes,
who is the
yes,
Vaishnava?
yes.
Who is the
Very good, thank
Vaishnava? Yes.
How do I know who is a Vaishnava? So we said, you said serve the Vaishnavas. So who is a Vaishnava? How can I tell? So then this same question was asked multiple times by Satyaraj Khan. This was the first time, but then he asked the same question again, just to clarify and get further information. The next time he came to Puri, and Lord Chaitanya gave slightly different answers. So this first time, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was asked, who is a Vaishnav? He said, do you know what he said?
Yeah, he said that even one person who is just reciting like one time, what Hare Krishna, that he's
Very
a
good.
Vaishnava.
Yes. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, whoever chants the holy name of Krishna even once, is worshipable and is the topmost among human beings. Wow. Jai bhaje, Jai bhaje, she boro. Abhakta hin char, Krishna bhajano nahi jati kuladi bichar. Like that. So he said that the first time going through. So then Srila Prabhupada gives an explanation of that. Then the second time he asked the question, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave a slightly different response. Do you know that? Slightly different response?
He said, who always chants Hare Krishna mantra.
Yes. Yes. So the second time, Lord Chaitanya, the inhabitants of Kulina Gram said, please let me know who is actually a Vaishnava and what his symptoms are. Understanding his mind, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu smiled and gave the following explanation. A person who is always chanting the holy name of the Lord is to be considered a first-class Vaishnava, and your duty is to serve his lotus feet. And then the third time, the same question was asked, and this time Lord Chaitanya gave a slightly different answer also. Do you know this third one?
Yes, he said that by seeing that person, somebody starts chanting or reciting Lord's name, that person is the Vaishnava.
Exactly. So these are generally considered the three stages of devotional service. There's the Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyam Adhikari, and Uttama Adhikari. So this exchange between Satyaraj Khan and Lord Chaitanya, or Satyaraj Khan and the inhabitants of Kulina Gram, are very instructive. But so the point was to find such a Vaishnav and serve them. Especially, it's wonderful to serve the first-class Vaishnav And generally, a spiritual master is one who's on the, we should search out one who's on the first class or the Uttama Adhikari platform. Serving all the Vaishnava is wonderful, but particularly focusing on serving the Uttama Adhikari spiritual master is especially beneficial. Any questions about that? Comments?
So
Next verse.
I will
Go ahead.
comment.
Go ahead.
Uh,
Comment. Yes.
a
Mother
question.
Golokananda Priya.
Yeah, I'm just thinking. Sometimes devotee have difficulty in the spiritual life. You know, we don't consider them. We say, "Oh, he's not a devotee." So, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say, even you change the holy name once, one become a Vaishnava. So, what will you say about it?
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning. Thank you for the question, Mother Golokananda Priya. So sometimes we see that devotees aren't following very strictly or very carefully, or they were at one time and then they stopped. And but the way Srila Prabhupada dealt with all those people, he was always very encouraging and very loving, at the same time encouraging them to make further progress. So he gave them a special, very merciful to everybody, giving his shelter to them. I mean, I could give names, but sometimes a devotee within ISKCON would fall away from the practice of Krishna consciousness by not following the regulative principles or not chanting rounds. And sometimes the devotees in the movement would reject them. There's some sects of Christianity or kind of Christianity that there's something called they shame people if they go away or they deviate from the practice, and so they bring them forward and shame them and reject them from the association. Srila Prabhupada didn't do that. He encouraged people always to, even if they're not following exactly he encouraged them to continue to associate and continue to chant or again chant and take to Krishna consciousness. What to speak of people in the Hare Krishna movement, Prabhupada said that even a drunkard, if he thinks the taste of this liquor that taste is Krishna, one day he'll be a great devotee. So he said that Krishna. So always encouraging in spite of temporary deficits or deviations. What do you think, Mother Golokananda Priya?
Yeah, we have to. I think if we have this mentality, oh, he is a fallen devotee, not a devotee, so we should always remember Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saying in once.
Yeah.
Considered a Vaishnava.
How did Srila Prabhupada deal with that? Yeah, how did Lord Chaitanya deal with it? Right.
Thank
So,
you.
of course, we want to associate with devotees who are apparently more advanced than us to get better, but not that we shun others or we shame others by any means. It's an inclusive thing, and not that we're trying to artificially set ourselves up as being better than somebody else, but we generally want to be able to sincerely, regularly serve Krishna and the devotees, and one way to do that is to be merciful. Encourage everybody to continue to engage in Krishna service any way they can.
Hare Krishna, bro.
Yeah.
So, and related to this question, like sometimes when we go on Harinam and then there are people chanting the holy names along, right? So they also chant the Hare Krishna. So at what stage we consider a person as a Vaishnava when it comes to a situation like this? Is there an element of faith when someone chants the holy name to be considered as a Vaishnava, even if it's just once?
Yes, yes, as Lord Chaitanya says. What to speak of people who chant the holy name once? We were said to offer respect even to anyone, but especially to someone who's chants the holy name even once. Mother Mitravinda has her hand up, I see.
Thank you so much for acknowledging that, Prabhu. I do appreciate it. The word everyone, regardless. I wanted to appreciate that you were emphasizing that, because, such things as body, titles, status socially, degrees, cars, what have you. Those are the things that influence us in the dehas that we have. We become distracted by those things when we consider who should get what or who is worthy. So Lord Chaitanya here is making it very clear, everyone. And when we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it's so perfect and pure that sometimes we can think that we're elevated because we're doing it. And I just wanted to appreciate your emphasizing that, because this is Lord Chaitanya speaking. This is what he wants. And as we overcome our aspects of ego, we can serve Krishna better. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Haribol. Next verse.
Shri Murari Gupta Shakha, Premer Bhandar, Prabhur Hridoy Drobe Shuni Doino Jar.
Murari Gupta, the 21st branch of the tree of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was a storehouse of love of Godhead. His great humility and meekness melted the heart of Lord Chaitanya. Purport. Sri Murari Gupta wrote a book called Sri Chaitanya Charita. He belonged to a Vaidya physician family of Sri Hatta, the paternal home of Lord Chaitanya, and later became a resident of Navadip. He was among the elders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya exhibited his Varaha form in the house of Murari Gupta, as described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat Madhya Lila 3rd chapter. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited his Mahaprakash form, he appeared before Murari Gupta as Lord Ramchandra. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu were sitting together in the house of Srivas Thakur, Murari Gupta first offered his respects to Lord Chaitanya and then to Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Nityananda Prabhu, however, was older than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and therefore Lord Chaitanya remarked that Murari Gupta had violated social etiquette, for he should have first shown respect to Nityananda Prabhu and then to him. In this way, by the grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Murari Gupta was informed about the position of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and the next day he offered obeisances first to Lord Nityananda and then to Lord Chaitanya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave chewed pan or betel nut to Murari Gupta. Once, Murari Gupta offered foodstuffs to Lord Chaitanya that were cooked with excessive ghee. And the next day, the Lord became sick and went to Murari Gupta for treatment. Lord Chaitanya accepted some water from the water pot of Murari Gupta, and thus he was cured. The natural remedy for indigestion is to drink a little water. And since Murari Gupta was a physician, he gave the Lord some drinking water and cured him. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had appeared in the house of Srivas Thakur in his Chaturbhuj Murti, Murari Gupta became his carrier became his carrier in the form of Gurud. And in these pastimes of ecstasy, the Lord then got up on his back. It was the desire of Murari Gupta to leave his body before the disappearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but the Lord forbade him to do so. This is described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat Madhya Lila, chapter 20. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu one day appeared in the ecstasy of Barahamurti, Murari Gupta offered him prayers. He was a great devotee of Lord Ramchandra, and his staunch devotion is vividly described in Madhya Lila, 15th chapter, verses 137 through 157. So this Murari Gupta, as mentioned, is a great devotee of Lord Ramchandra. So at one point, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu described to Murari Gupta all of the wonderful qualities of Lord Krishna. And he suggested to him that he should, instead of focusing on Lord Ramchandra, give his devotion to Lord Krishna. So that night, Murari Gupta tried to follow the order of the Lord and tried to change his allegiance from Lord Ramchandra to Lord Krishna. But he couldn't do it. So he was in anxiety all night. And he thought, well, this Lord has given me this order and I'm not able to carry it out. And I cannot leave the lotus feet of Lord Raghunath. So he came to Lord Chaitanya and he suggested that he give up his body because he couldn't do the order. And Lord Chaitanya blessed him. He said, you are the actual follower of Lord Ramchandra. You are none other, you are like Hanuman himself. So Lord Chaitanya was very pleased with his staunch devotion to Lord Ramchandra. Of course, he was also a devotee of Lord Chaitanya, writing this Sri Chaitanya Charita, which was describing the early pastimes of Lord Chaitanya in Navadvip. And as mentioned, he was also present during the Mahaprakash activity, pastime of Lord Chaitanya, when Lord Chaitanya sat down on a bed at the house of Srivas Thakur, and for 21 hours, he exhibited himself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and was giving away love of Godhead to anybody who came. So Murari Gupta was also there, Mahaprakash Lila. That's also the time when he forgave his mother, Sachi, for her offense to Advaitacharya, or apparent offense to Advaitacharya. Murari Gupta, physician, Vaidya. Questions, comments?
Hare
No?
Krishna.
Yeah.
So was that Murari Gupta was expansion of Hanumanji? Or?
It doesn't say specifically.
Okay.
So it's a little, sometimes a little tricky to understand. Just like the devotees were putting on a play in New York of Krishna kidnaps Rukmini, and Srila Prabhupada was there, and he was so pleased with the acting, and particularly the devotee playing Rukmini was very, very good. So he said, "You are Rukmini. You are." But that didn't mean that she is the expansion of the goddess of fortune, or the expansion of Srimati Radharani like that. But so it's not described further, so it's hard to say for me.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Next 50.
প্রতিগ্রহ নাহি করে না লয় কারো ধন আত্মবৃত্তি করি করে কুটুম্ব ভরণ
Srila Murari Gupta never accepted charity from friends, nor did he accept money from anyone. He practiced as a physician and maintained his family with his earnings. Purport. It should be noted that a grihasta householder must not make his livelihood by begging from anyone. Every householder of the higher castes should engage himself in his own occupational duty as a Brahmin, Kshatriya, or Vaishya, but should not engage in the service of others, for this is the duty of the Shudra. One should simply accept whatever he earns by his own profession. The engagements of a Brahmin are yajan, patan, dana, patigraha. A Brahmin should be a worshipper of Vishnu, and he should also instruct others how to worship. That's the yajan. A Kshatriya can become a landholder and earn his livelihood by levying taxes or collecting rents from tenants. A Vaishya can accept agriculture or general trade as an occupational duty. Since Murari Gupta was born in a physician's family, Vaidya Vangsha, he practiced as a physician, and with whatever income he earned, he maintained his family. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, everyone should execute his devotional duty, and thus he should satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the perfection of life. This system is called Daiva Varnashram. Murari Gupta was an ideal grihasta, for he was a great devotee of Lord Ramchandra and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. By practicing as a physician, he maintained his family and at the same time satisfied Lord Chaitanya to the best of his ability. This is the ideal of householder life. When, of course, there's the Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya. In this sense, sometimes a Vaidya is considered or a medical person is considered a Brahmin or Kabiraj sometimes, but sometimes also is on the Vaishya platform. So the verse Prabhupada is referring to here is Atap Kumbir Dvija Shrestha Varnashrama Vibhagasha Swanustitasya Dharmasya Sangsiddhir Haritoshanam. The different questions that the sages of Naimisharanya asked Sutta Goswami, and one of them was, how can you do your occupational duty properly? So this was the answer to that question. The perfection of your occupation is if you can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sangsiddhir Haritoshanam. Hari means Lord Krishna, and Toshna means satisfication. So that's, everybody can use their proclivities, their abilities to please the Supreme Lord Krishna by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and also engaging in various services, giving donations, etc. Brahmananda Prabhu, in the early days of ISKCON, was working as a teacher in Manhattan. So when he became more involved in the Hare Krishna movement, he thought, well, maybe I should just give up my job and stay with Srila Prabhupada and just take care of him, serve him all day. So Srila Prabhupada said, no, you continue your occupation and give the results to Krishna. So this is quite early. Brahmananda was a little baffled. He says, well, how am I going to give the results to Krishna? How do I do that? And you know what Srila Prabhupada said?
Give the money, give what you have earned.
He said, you give the results of your work to me, and I'll give to Krishna. That's quite instructive. Quite instructive. Satisfy Krishna by satisfying his devotees like that. Sangsiddhir Haritoshanam. Yasya prashadat bhagavat prashado yasya prashada nagati kutopi. Yeah. Other questions, comments? Next verse.
চিকিৎসা করেন যারে হইয়া সদয়, দেহ রোগ ভবরোগ দুই তার ক্ষয়।
As Murari Gupta treated his patients, by his mercy, both their bodily and spiritual diseases subsided. Purport. Murari Gupta could treat both bodily and spiritual disease because he was a physician by profession and a great devotee of the Lord in terms of spiritual advancement. This is an example of service to humanity. Everyone should know that there are two kinds of diseases in human society. One disease, which is called adhyatmika or material disease, pertains to the body. But the main disease is spiritual. The living entity is eternal. But somehow or other, when in contact with the material energy, he is subjected to the repetition of birth, death, old age, and disease. The physicians of the modern day should learn from Murari Gupta. Although modern philanthropic physicians open gigantic hospitals, there are no hospitals to cure the material disease of the spirit soul. The Krishna consciousness movement has taken up the mission of curing this disease. But people are not very appreciative because they do not know what this disease is. A diseased person needs both proper medicine and a proper diet. And therefore, the Krishna consciousness movement supplies materially stricken people with the medicine of chanting the holy name or the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and the diet of prasad. There are many hospitals and medical clinics to cure bodily diseases, but there are no such hospitals to cure the material disease of the spirit soul. The centers of the Krishna consciousness movement are the only established hospitals that can cure man of birth, death, old age, and disease. Comments or questions about this one? Observations? No? I thought somebody would have a comment about this. So,
Simple explanation.
simple explanation. Very nicely explained, Srila Prabhupada. So Murari Gupta was treating both the material disease and the spiritual disease. So within ISKCON and the Hare Krishna movement, the focus is more on taking care of the spiritual malady of ourselves and people in general. But that doesn't mean that there's no attention paid to the material disease either, like Murari Gupta. So there's a few hospitals within ISKCON as well. You probably know. Have you been to any of them? There's one in Bombay. I forget what it's called. Do you know?
Bhaktivedanta Hospital.
Bhaktivedanta.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Bhaktivedanta Hospital, following the footsteps of Murari Gupta. But in that, you've been there maybe, Mother Archana Siddhi. Yeah?
Yes, Prabhuji.
How was it?
Very nice, like a temple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they accept all kinds of people. It's not that you have to be a Hare Krishna devotee or a Vaishnav to be treated there. And one of the special activities they take on is they bring a deity of Lord Jagannath to all the residents, isn't it?
Yes, yes, Prabhuji.
And they also, as mentioned here, not only they give them some medicine, but they chant the Hare Krishna mantra there and give them prasad. So these things are very, very effective for their spiritual and material development. This is a very nice system. And also in, they have a system, Mother Sangeeta does this Vaishnava care, which is a similar thing. Because at the end of life or later at other times when someone is ill, material support is required, but also spiritual interest, spiritual support is especially important. Sometimes people think that when a person is near death, they become more interested in God. Well, it's not really true, not always. People sometimes become more attached to their material circumstances. I read one survey, it was done, of course, in the United States, not in India or other places, where they were surveying people who were in hospice care, which means in the latter part they're expected to die, usually within 6 months, about their attitudes towards God and religion, etc. And they didn't find any higher interest in spiritual subjects among the people who were about to die versus those who were not about to die. But everybody's about to die. And those who are smart, intelligent, hopefully will take that under advisement and take steps to make a solution to death. In ordinary society, there's no question, there's not even a thought that that's possible. You can escape death. But the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord Krishna, and Srila Prabhupada give very detailed and practical information, step by step, how we can avoid the ravages of birth, death, old age, and disease, not just in one life, but always, eternally. So that's a benefit of going to the hospital at Bhaktivedanta, the Bhaktivedanta hospital, and by going to the hospitals of the Hare Krishna movement, which are the Krishna consciousness centers. Hare Krishna. One more shloka.
শ্রীমান সেন প্রভুর সেবক প্রধান চৈতন্য চরণ বিনু নাহি জানে আর
Sriman Sen, the 22nd branch of the Chaitanya tree, was a very faithful servant of Lord Chaitanya. He knew nothing else but the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Purport. Sriman Sen was one of the inhabitants of Navadvip and was a constant companion of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the Sriman Sen is not the same as Shivananda Sen. How do you know that? Because Shivananda Sen was not an inhabitant of Navadvip. So Sriman Sen was here. So we know that. Okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Any other comments or questions? Thank you. Thank you all. Lord Chaitanya ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo.
Thank you, Vishnugada.
Hey Krishna, thank you. Thank you for tuning in from India. And Prananath is also from India. Prananath. This is international Zooms. Zoom is international. Hare Krishna.